Chad is the Director of Student Success Pathways and International Student Advisor at Assumption University. I had the pleasure of meeting with Chad and his colleagues on campus last month, but they have been really showing up as a strong culture of mentorship for quite some time. And what we want to do today is talk a little bit about who Chad is, what Assumption is doing, and dig into a few of those elements that we've talked about, and open up the floor for questions so that those of you on the line could potentially ask questions of Chad as well. So Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into Assumption.
Yeah, thanks so much, Annemiek. It's good to be with everyone. As she said, I'm Chad Laliberte. My role at Assumption is Director of International Students and Student Success Pathways. I've been at Assumption for 12 years. I was in student affairs for the first 9, and then made the transition over to student success not too long ago. And this was one of the initiatives that came to me, and thankfully. And so I kind of juggle 3 things at the university. About half of my job is working with our international students and being a good resource for them and all of their needs. I'm also the point person at the university when we get word through our own internal system that anybody maybe is not having the experience that they anticipated, feels like there's an area where we can improve. Maybe students thinking about transferring or withdrawing. I run point with those folks, and then of course I facilitate our AU Mentor Collective program. For those who don't know, Assumption University is a small private Catholic institution in Worcester, Mass. We're about 2,000 undergrads. I want to say maybe 600 grads. And we've been with MC for, I want to say 5 or 6 years. Had a lot of traction in the first 3. COVID happened, and so we've been working the last kind of 3 to really regain traction. And I will say, like, this has been an excellent webinar so far. I love what the other schools are doing. It is a little intimidating because I see that there's a lot of work to do on our front. I think we're doing a lot of things well, but there's a lot of things that we can improve on. So it's a little bit about me and Assumption.
Thank you, Chad. And I think this is the never-ending journey, right? It's like our own wellness journeys. This is just like with student success at your institution. There's always more to do. And I think that that perspective you have of like what we're doing is never enough is exactly what keeps you excelling and exceeding. So can you walk us through at a high level the program design and who you're engaging, who the students are when you engage them?
Yeah, so we have this year we had 122 mentors for I want to say we're 491 first year students, and our mentors are they're not paid. They do it kind of because they remember what it was like to be new, and so it's very organic in that way. Yeah, I guess I'll kind of just leave it at that.
Great. And we're going to get into the details about how you engage those folks. So just a quick check based on the chat, we are definitely asking the right questions today because we're going to talk about visibility, celebration, and strategy, which were the top hits of where people wanted to focus. So just starting off, you demonstrate quite a few of these elements. I'd love to focus on strategy and visibility. So can you talk more about how this initiative is connected to your broader student success strategy?
Yeah, sure. So when I think about student success at Assumption, there's a few kind of themes, a few terms that come up, right? And so for us, it's personal and it's proactive, right? It's thoughtful and it's intentional. It's consistent and it's evolving. And so, Annemiek, to your point, for us, it's all about continuous improvement in all facets. And so, like, kind of big picture, that's kind of where we're at from a student success standpoint, where I see kind of mentorship fitting into that. And the role that it plays is huge on our campus because we're small, we're mostly residential. The community feel is a very important thing to us. And so I see sort of mentorship being instrumental, but also cyclical to help us kind of to get to where we want to get to from a student success standpoint. And so first and foremost, like, huge props to all of the Assumption students that are part of our program. They do a great job, and honestly, without them, like, this doesn't happen. And so mentors, mentees, like a huge prop to those folks. So when I think about the student success cycle, I'm thinking first and foremost, like students need to feel welcomed, they need to feel comfortable, and they need to feel supported at their institution, right? When students feel those things, if you can get to that point, right, you've got students who are more likely to succeed because they've got confidence in the institution, confidence in the community, they've got self-confidence, and I think those things are super, super important with today's students specifically. So that then creates this kind of, sense of belonging to their community, or at least you would hope that would. They have this recognition that, wait a second, so this is bigger than just me. This isn't just me being a first-year student. This is like, I am a member of a community, and sure, there's a lot that I will be taught as a member of that community, but I have a responsibility to do the teaching as well. And so we're all teachers, we're all learners, and so we like to think that that creates a sense of belonging to the community. When you're part of something bigger than yourself, you also, I hope, feel that you have the responsibility to engage and to give back. And so that is really sort of where Assumption, I think, does really well, in that we do a really great job with, with kind of creating that cycle of, we're here for you, you feel supported, now you're, successful, you recognize that you're part of a community. And so when I send communication out that, we're looking to recruit mentors for the class of 2028, there's an obligation for our mentees, which we get about 92 to 96% of our first year students, in the program as mentees. There's an obligation to pay it forward. And typically we do pretty well with recruiting mentors on that front.
As I mentioned, I got to go to Assumption, and I'm in this room that's in the center of the student success corridor, basically, and plastered across the walls are the three strategic plan elements, and everyone in the room can quickly say, it's this and it's this, and that's where mentorship fits, and that's where we're trying to drive. So this kind of like laser focus on the student experience. I also want to reflect something you shared about participant centricity here. Like, it's about figuring out what students need in this current model of education and understanding them and being where they need us to be. When I visited you all in the institution, there were a lot of people in the room to talk about the Mentor Collective program. You were obviously the champion of it across your institution. Talk to us a little bit about kind of how mentorship is celebrated by leadership or cross-functionally at your institution, in terms of kind of that visibility there.
Sure. So, if there's any kind of silver lining to COVID, I can't speak for other institutions, but for Assumption, one of the things that did was we recognized very, very quickly that everybody being on the same page is really, really important. And that's on the administrative side, the faculty side. And so, having been here for 12 years, I can confidently say now that we are more collaborative. We meet more often with town halls, and so buy-in, and cross functionality has been pretty easy for us. If I'm being honest, I guess a prime example of kind of how we do that is with our mentor recruitment, right? So, I'm purposefully reaching out to athletics. I'm reaching out to our Alana and first gen director. I'm reaching out to student activities and leadership development, right? To make sure that, and we heard this earlier in one of the videos, the mentors that we have are appropriate to serve the population that we're bringing in. And part of that, again, another thing that was mentioned earlier is identifying, are there certain students that we know may need a little bit of, specified support, right? And so if we can use that data, we can identify that, and we have the mentors, properly sourced to accommodate that, that's a recipe for success. Couple other pieces in terms of cross functionality. One of the best things that I did with this program was halfway through my first year in, I recognized we need more student participation on the leadership level. And so I formed a student group. That's something that we've continued. And again, same thing, like we're trying to get appropriate representation of our student body on that student group to kind of help us drive our program forward. As Anami said, we also have an administrative leadership group as well, which is cross-collaborative, which is very helpful. And I guess, you know, I would go so far as to say at our institution, I don't know if you could say that there's too much mentorship, but we have a lot of different mentorship programs, which I think is good. But the challenge that we run into with having a lot of these programs that are very specified to assist students in certain ways, you know, at times creates confusion among the student body where, you know, well, wait a second. So I thought I already had a mentor. And it's like, well, you do, but that's a different mentor. And so I think, you know, again, like us kind of taking a step back and looking at, you know, while we mean well having all of these different mentorship opportunities, is there a way to be a little bit more connected, a little bit more intentional? And so getting back to my initial point about student success, right? And this is one of those things that we're kind of looking at and saying, okay, are we doing it the right way? Should we maybe tweak that? But needless to say, a lot of cross-functionality.
Yeah. And that's a constant conversation about probably not just the mentorship programs, but all of the things that you offer to students and the many opportunities they have. I also want to share something as we go into our conversations about visibility here is that it's very clear assumption that the mentor role is a core part of your mission and your brand as an institution. So you mentioned pay it forward. I heard your VP of Student Success talk about, like, we know what drives our students to participate in mentors. It's the servant leadership, it's the participation in the greater sense of whole, and that in of itself is part of the student experience here at Assumption. I'm sure they have more than one opportunity to perform or engage in the community that way. At Assumption, it's not just mentorship that they're called to do. So let's get into visibility, because I think this is an area where we share your examples very often, Chad, and your outcomes very often. How do you get incoming students to know about mentorship right from the beginning of the student experience? You told us you have these amazing opt-in numbers for your mentees. Walk us through that.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess I would probably credit that to, you know, in a previous role in student affairs, I was our director of student conduct. And so I would always trying to come up with, like, how can we communicate policy to students in a way that will resonate? And so I always kind of subscribe to the mindset that the best way to communicate any messaging on any campus that I've been on anyway is from one student to another student. Sure, administrators and faculty and deans can get up and give presentations, and they can speak in students' language and try to kind of like meet students where they are. But ultimately, I don't feel like that typically will resonate as well as it does from one student to another student. And so I think that's a huge focus. One of the things that we do strategically is we don't wait until students are deposited to start talking about a community of mentorship. And so we do work with admissions to start highlighting that before students are even here. And just sort of, you know, I think generically as a marketing piece, I think that's smart. If you have a mentorship program, I think you probably should be communicating that, you know, at different open house events. And so that's kind of where it starts for us. Again, the student group that I put together has been very helpful in that way, because most, you know, families, most prospective students, like, they want to hear from current students about their experience. And so we've been kind of strategic in that way. You know, we're marketing this as, you know, it's support, it's connection, it's guidance throughout your first year, and you don't have to wait until August to start. You know, and so we, like I would assume a lot of other institutions are, you know, matching students in the middle of the summer with the mindset that we want them to start connecting, you know, to get to know each other, and to provide assistance with all of the things that students need to do to onboard at the university. and really to kind of like set the framework for when they actually, physically get on campus, to make that connection. And so some of the ways that we communicate that, so we'll say, think of your mentor as a personal concierge, ready to listen, inspire, help navigate challenges, and recognize opportunities. And so really kind of like culminate, like from the very start, this person can tell you whether or not you need twin XL sheets or just, regular twin sheets. All the way through to, hey, so, now we're getting towards the end of the year. Hopefully you're going to serve as a mentor for someone in the class of 2028. And so we highlight that we don't want to wait till fall to get to know our students. And I think that's a key. And I will say, I do sometimes get a little concerned that some students could be a little intimidated sometimes when they hear, I don't know if I'm ready to serve as a mentor, for the new students. And I'm always kind of quick to rephrase that, like your job over the summer is to get to know our new students and to welcome them again, like, building that confidence. But yes, we do expect that, after you do that, that student will go to you as a primary resource and you will serve as a meaningful mentor for them. We use phrasing like, who better to get you started on the right foot than someone who just did it? And again, the part of what we're really trying to emphasize is, full circle. This is a student leadership opportunity for you. We want you to pay it forward for the next class. I mentioned assistance with onboarding and our, really high opt-in rate for our first year students. We get that, one, because we're advertising it right away during admissions events. Two, we try to, as soon as a student is deposited, we try to get them access to their onboarding checklist, and we build that throughout the summer. And so right now, there's only 2 or 3 items on the checklist, but one of them is register to get your mentor. And so our mindset is that kind of gets them started. It gets them looking at the checklist of all the things that they need to be doing. And it's something to look forward to. And so on the retention front, it's helpful because it will help reduce melt over the summer as well, because you're engaging students, even prior to the summer. So that's one of the things that's on our onboarding checklist. I will, on a weekly basis, go into our NC dashboard. I will look at all of the students that have registered and completed a matching survey. I send that to our folks in admissions, and they then check that box for students on their onboarding checklist, so they know that is complete. Part of the reason why we do that is because we want to identify any outliers. So when our June orientation sessions come around, if there's somebody who hasn't completed that part of the onboarding checklist, we know that prior to them coming in, and we'll have a table set up for Mentor Collective, and we'll just highlight it as, hey, we noticed that you didn't register. It really is a valuable program. I know that right now it seems like, maybe you don't have a ton of questions, but you will, and you will really benefit from having a current student, to rely on, in addition to all the other resources. And so our opt-in rate is very high because of that practice.
And I think you've said it to us before. We don't say it's required, but we also don't say it's optional. Like, we kind of make this a default part of the Assumption experience. And that's the beauty of new students, is like the welcome week barbecue, everyone goes because they're kind of, just running with the default experience in the beginning. So
it is strategically placed at the top.
Yeah.
At the top of the checklist. Yeah.
Which is hard, because there are a lot of meaningful things you're doing to drive student success outcomes. Mentorship is one of them. So let's wrap up with our final question, but I want to make sure folks on the line, please chat in your questions, because we will save our last few minutes to ask Chad anything else that anyone has coming to mind. But Chad, just finish up by saying like what else you do to make your program visible and engage your participant, there are a few other things that you're doing as the program is going on. And I'd love for you to just share some of that with us.
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate the comment that you made about like it really does. It can't be one person that's doing everything, and I 1000% agree with that. However, I would say that whomever is your primary like really has to have ownership of this program, and in my opinion, should really be running point on communication efforts, recruiting efforts, and they should be doing that, again, in my opinion, in a very personalized fashion to the extent that you're able to do that at your institution. And so I think folks all know about like email merging, as opposed to like the, dear student, like that goes a long way. And so I do a lot of that. I am the face and the name of AU Mentor Collective. I do think that we have work to do in terms of visibility. But there's a lot of emphasis put on that. And so I'm the consistent connection with the mentors and mentees when I'm messaging mentors and mentees, and I try to be strategic. I try not to do it too much, but I'll send a message to mentors that's similar to what I sent to mentees, but also a little bit different. And so an example might be if I'm sending something to mentors to help mentees with academic advising, or course registration, I would send something to the mentees that would say, hey, so here are the dates. By the way, like, don't forget, your mentor is a great resource. And so if you haven't already, it might be a good idea to reach out to your mentor. Or when we talk about wanting students to connect over the summer, I'm not just saying to the mentors, reach out to your mentees after you get matched. I'm saying to the mentors want to hear from you. They didn't sign up to do this just to be able to add it to the resume. Like, they really want to help you out. They're not getting paid. They want to hear from you. And so really, really please reach out to your mentor. They want to hear from you. I'm the direct follow-up on all the flags. And so I'll see a flag come in. I'll reach out to the mentor and say, hey, thanks so much for all you're doing. I just want to let you know I saw your flag. And, if you didn't mention this, maybe something to think about. Let me know if you have any questions, or sometimes I'll kind of help them triage whatever it might be. But the acknowledgement that, I appreciate what you're doing, and it's not going to a black hole. Like, even if they said it's non-actionable, we're following up on it in some way, shape, or form. We do the same with the MC assessments. And so we do sense of belonging and academic self-efficacy. I'm looking at those assessments when they get done, and I'm personally reaching out to any student that scored below average. I'm reaching out, I'm offering to meet. I want to get more information from them about what can we improve, what can we help you with. We've got a customized logo that's been helpful for visibility, and so we kind of blended the AU logo and the MC logo, and that student group has polos with the logo on it. I think, one of the things I've thought about is, do we do like handkerchiefs and have students put them on backpacks or put them on water bottles? Do we do stickers? Like, do we do things like that that signify to the class of 2028, hey, we got 135 mentors, and you're gonna have one, but you'll see the other ones because they're gonna have these items, right? And so we haven't done that yet, but that's one of the things I'm kind of thinking about. I guess just kind of to wrap up, like, some of the things that at Assumption I want to improve. I think celebrating mentors and mentees is huge, and I think we can do a better job of doing that. I think, using certificates, highlighting a mentor-mentee of the month. Those are things that can go a really long way, and I don't think we're doing enough of that, and so I want to do that. One of the things we're talking about with our 10-year strategic plan is potentially creating an experiential transcript. And so if that's something that we end up doing, this is certainly something that would lend to that, and we want to have that included. I think we need to have more videos, and part of that is training mentors and mentees about dashboard capability and kind of how to support. But quite frankly, I think the other part of it is just general kind of inspirational videos. like to go on some of these Peloton rides. And I'll tell you, some of these instructors, like there's tidbits of things that they say, and I'm like, I got to write that down because it's inspirational. And I think we need to be doing more of that. And I guess last but not least, shout out to the gentleman from Augusta who did that. Website is great. The Jags for Jags, I love that. And so they're doing great things. I think, that's an area that we would strive to improve as well.
I love it. And thank you, Chad, for pointing that out, because I think all of you are doing great things, but also looking to learn from each other. So hopefully these types of forums are great for presenters and attendees alike.